and they were like, hey, working on this deck for the Open. Was wondering what your opinion on was it? What your opinion of it is. He's like an Experiment Jund deck. And I looked at the deck list and I was just like, you know, this deck list just looks pretty good. I don't really have much to add. Like, all of your ideas seem very well fleshed out on like why your slots are here and what your sideboard looks like and why it looks like that. And lo and behold, Tyler Lindsey is in a feature match right now at 5-1.
So
I can take no credit for this.
Yep.
Their deck was already good. I don't think I really changed anything. Their deck is Experiment Jund. It's the best Experiment 1 deck that I've seen thus far.
Sure.
You know, it has Experiment 1, obviously. It's Strangaroo Geist, Flint Hoofboar, Dreadmangler, Hellrider, Goreclan Rampager, Thundermaw Hellkite, and Deathrite Shaman. So a lot of ways to consistently make it bigger, to turn it into a 1-mana 3/3 or 1-mana 4/4. And then he's got Abrupt Decay, Searing Spears, and Tragic Slips as a removal, and then just spells, or excuse me, and then just lands, and then, you know, a sideboard that's diverse in what it can do.
So we see Brian Eason kick off on the play here with the Sacred Foundry and a Glacial Fortress. Tyler adds his second land. So his colors are good to go. And
now the cool thing about this deck is, you know, it is kind of a color intensive deck as far as, you know, what it can do, but Stomping Ground is a huge addition for this deck.
Yep.
You know, making Flint Hoofboar a lot better, as you're going to see a Strangleroot Geist here come across for 2. Strangleroot Geist has this really nice interaction as well with Experiment 1. You know, the first half of it, when you play it, makes it bigger, and then when it dies, it comes back as a 3/2, making Experiment 1 bigger as well. So, you know, Strangleroot Geist is a card that's been pretty underplayed recently. As you do see a Thought Scour here from Brian revealing Hallowed Fountain and Restoration Angel.
so Brian Eason's list is much closer, as we see Pillar Flame, to what you and I were talking about before we went to break. 3 copies of Sphinx's Revelation and 1 Aurelius Fury.
Sure.
So he has, you know, another X-Spell, another closer. On top of, I mean, this list is very close to the Jerry T. Todd Anderson list, down to the 1 Supreme Verdict, the 1 Rewind, the 1 Runetanner's Pike. We've seen this shell before, and I like Aurelius Fury a lot more as a one of backed up by your copies of Sphinx's Revelation as opposed to replacing Sphinx's Revelation. So yeah. I like Brian's list a lot better here. You see the Boar get haste and then Azorius Charm back on top.
Brian's hand right now, he does have an island to go along with the Thought Scour, a Rewind, another Azorius Charm, I believe a mystery card in there as well. He's done a nice job thus far. Gonna Thought Scour, Flinthoof Boar, and Thundermaw Hellkite are going to go away. Pillar of Flame is the draw step, and the other card in his hand is a Counterflux right now.
Yeah, so he's got some counter spells and a little bit of removal, but no action.
Yeah.
And it's really hard if you're not putting pressure on this Experiment deck and you're not setting up Sphinx's Revelation, you can't really trade 1 for 1 forever because all the threats are so good.
Yep. Now, one card that ends up being good against Experiment Jund, and obviously other aggro decks in the format, again, is Restoration Angel. Its removal is Searing Spear, Tragic Slip, and Abrupt Decay. Tragic Slip actually does a pretty nice job against Restoration Angel, making it a 2/3. Yep. With this deck that has a lot of 3/3s in it.
Yeah, it's weirdly significant. Yeah,
to actually be able to deal with it, as we're going to see Blood Crypt come to play on tap here for Tyler. And you see a Dreadmangler in his hand. I think you see a couple copies of Flinthoof Boar as well. So you're going to see Dreadmangler here. Wondering if that's okay. Counterfluxing that is decent.
It's okay, but
not great.
Not if the game goes on for a long time.
Yep. And you are going to see Counterflux here take care of that. And the reason that you saw him play that Blood Crypt on tap is because he does have a Tragic Slip. And that interaction with Restoration Angel, the Dreadmangler would have resolved. But you see just a Sacred Foundry here from Brian. Tyler going to draw a card, draws a Strangleroot Geist.
So you got a bunch of Flinthoof Boars, a couple of removal spells.
There's your Boar.
And it doesn't appear as though he has that Brian has Restoration Angel in hand, but this would be one of the spots where Tragic Slip would be awesome.
Yeah. So you see Brian has a Pillar of Flame and a Rewind in his hand. He doesn't even have anything flashy like a Think Twice to flashback or a Sphinx's Revelation. He doesn't really have a lot going on. Haste here for the Boar. Tyler's going to come across with what looks to be no fear of Restoration Angel, but that's not the actual truth because of Tragic Slip. Brian takes a draw step, draws a Hallowed Fountain.
Yeah.
Flooding kind of badly here.
Yeah, although, you know, part of this deck in theory can use a lot of lands, but again, without Revelations, it's just spinning its wheels.
Yep. Hellrider the draw step for Tyler's turn. So a handful of action, stopping at 4 is a pretty good thing for an aggressive.
Imagine we're gonna just keep boring here because we're still trying to like play around Restoration Angel. Yep. We want a Hellrider when we have a mana up.
Yep. And so now you're going to see Rewind take care of the Flinthoof Boar. And now, you know, you wonder if There's one card left in Brian's hand. Does Tyler have the read? Go for the Strangleroot Geist, get him for 5, or keep playing it safe?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, you faded it for last turn. Yeah, I like this. It's
moving in.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, yeah, there's some risk there, but I think the odds are pretty good that you would have seen it last turn if it was there. So
you're going to see Pillar Flame take care of the Strangleroot Geist. Funhoof Boar still standing tall. Going to draw a card. Stomping Ground is the draw step. Going to play that untapped again. 5th land lets him play Hell Rider plus the Tragic Slip interaction. So now you see a Hell Rider. 2 triggers. And a whole bunch of damage. Sulfur Falls, Brian's last card, draws Izzet Charm. We're going to see a main phase one of those.
Yep.
Draw 1, draw 2. So you can discard 2 lands here, Sulfur Falls, and Hallowed Fountain. Snapcaster Mage is the last card.
Pack it up.
Yep, Mage is going to pack it up, pack it in. Tyler Lindsey up a game with his Brew Experiment Jund versus Brian Eason in his more traditional blue-white-red flash deck.
Yeah, just I mean, just brawled, right? The blue-white, you know, the Snapcaster Mage and Sphinx's Revelation are where all the power from this deck comes from. Yeah. The deck's imminently beatable when those 2 cards are not involved in the game. You saw right there. I mean, he had some counter spells, and he had some removal spells, but Tyler was never under any pressure, so he could play the game at his own pace. He had, you know, he was able to take his time, play around Restoration Angel, because he wasn't under any pressure to do anything quickly. Yeah. So, as impressive as the blue-white-red flash deck is, it does very much hinge on those cards to eventually overpower their opponent.
Well, you see Brian is in an interesting matchup here. You know, he's got an idea that he's against a more aggressive Jund deck than your, you know, removal-heavy versions from the previous standard format. What can he do as far as help himself? Because this deck has a lot of X3s in it as opposed to, you know, X2 creatures that Pillar Flame is really good against for Brian's sideboard.
Well, I mean, in his board he has 2 Detention Spheres and 2 Supreme Verdicts, and those are excellent. He has Staticasters and that don't do very much. He's got a full playset of Tormod Scripts he doesn't want here. Dispel Negate, Geist Insane Trapped, I would not be that big of an advocate of bringing in here, of course, because the Jund deck's just good at brawling on the ground. So just a couple more good spot removal spells and Supreme Verdicts. But those 4 cards are actually big additions. Yep. Detention Sphere is a good catch-all. You know, things are outside of your pillar range, that's fine, you can still capture them. Supreme Verdict is a huge ace, of course, against a deck that's just playing a curve of creatures. And so, even though it's only 4 slots, I think Brian's deck gets considerably better in the post-board games.
Taking a look at Tyler's deck list here, 3 Skullcracks are the interesting one, I think, right off the bat. I think they're much better here. I mean, obviously, it's a card that's good against Thragtusk, good against Huntmaster of the Fells, but I think this is an area where you can really trump the Sphinx's Revelation just with how the games play out.
Yeah.
3 copies of that in a sideboard. 2 copies of Tribute to Hunger, which is a card I don't, you know, traditionally love, but I mean, Restoration Angel is that big of a problem for this deck, where I think it's reasonable to sideboard those in. 2 copies of Rolling Temblar, not for this matchup. Abrupt Decay, not very good here. Golgari Charm, okay, it's decent if he predicts the Detention Spheres are coming. Also regenerate each creature with Supreme Verdict. You know, so we can see that come in. A couple copies of Gruul Charm, which I'm a little surprised to see.
I mean, I'm not really sure when you would want it. Like, what are the decks that are going to play into it?
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure it's there for a reason. A copy of Rakdos Charm, not so much here, and then a copy of Deathrite Shaman, which could be okay here. 3 in the main deck, another one in the sideboard. Make those Snapcaster Mages worse. This deck's velocity is based through its graveyard with Think Twice, and, you know, flashbacking Thought Scour, and, you know, I think that Deathrite Shaman has quite a bit of utility here. The cards that are easy to sideboard out here for Tyler are certainly the 2 copies of Abrupt Decay. After that, things get a little bit dicey because we saw how good Tragic Slip could have been in that game, taking care of both Restoration Angel because his guys are 3/3s versus a 2/3, and being able to deal with Snapcaster Mage. But maybe, you know, Tragic Slip is just a little bit worse because, you know, your guys are going to beat Snapcaster Mage in a fight anyway.
Yeah, well, I think that you can't afford to have both Tragic Slip and the Rampager, because they both are sort of shoring up the same problem, which is, you know, how do I alpha into a defensive Restoration Angel? But they both come with the same problem of often Tragic Slip can't be cast, and you only want so many pump spells against the Azorius Charm, Unsummon, like Wrath of God deck, you know. So I would have to assume that one of those 2 cards has to get cut because you can't afford to have that many slots for that kind of effect. Like ideally, you would draw one of them in a game, but not really any more than that. Is what I would guess.
Interesting that you bring up too is it's actually one interaction I didn't think of. How well Gore Clan Rampager, its Blood Rush, trumps a Restoration Angel, because we've talked about Restoration Angel so much on just how it is just a 3/4 and it having 4 toughness is such a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And Gore Clan Rampager just embarrasses that.
Right.
And I think that could be a big deal. So much, in fact, that again, Tragic Slips can come out here, Abrupt Decays are going to come out here, and you know, a card that I think he could also sideboard out is Strangleroot Geist, because he knows he has pillars.
Yep.
And it's just one of the more poor cards. You know, there's Augur Bolas as well.
Right. I was just about to say that. I think Gruel's Charm, if I had to guess, is probably for mirror matches or Naya decks that have Huntmaster and Thrytusk, because a Falter effect would be very good in those matchups.
Sure.
Because the board gets locked up, but you can still play your guys.
And we are going to see an Experiment 1 here from Tyler. Let's see if we're going to see a Searing Experiment. Thing up just your Augur Bolas.
Last call for the Legacy
That's going to get Brian to think twice.
Yeah, there's a Singleton Think Twice in the main deck.
Making your way to the stage right now.
Experiment 1, the Human Ooze, probably the most aggressively listed Evolve card.
I think that that's definitely price to move, as they like to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the card that's really going to define if Evolve is a constructed worthy mechanic or not. You do see Experiment 1 getting in here with no fear. That's a Gore Clan Rampager if I've ever seen one.
Or just wants to bluff him so bad.
Hey, this is right in my wheelhouse. I love an attack with nothing.
Yeah.
He's just going to take one.
Just want to see what kind of man he is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm a.
That's going to trigger there. Yeah, because Deathrite Shaman has a larger toughness. So 2/2.
Combo. It's a combo deck. I'm really surprised that, I'm a little surprised that Tyler's deck has 2 different basic lands, given that it's 3 colors.
Yeah.
Seems like you should be gluing everything together through dual lands.
Yep.
Pick one color to be your base color. Play some forests because you have Experiment 1 and Deathrite Shaman. But other than that, you should be just all on dual lands.
Sure. You see Brian just play a Sulfur Falls and pass the turn back. The bluff this turn won't work as well because Brian does have access to mana now.
Right.
So you see an Azorius Charm if he was bluffing, which we do see the Gore Clan Rampager in Tyler's hand, so there was no bluff there. But for future considerations, that's certainly going to be in Brian's mind moving forward, not just for this game, but potentially the next one as well. As you do see a Searing Spear attempt to take out the Augur Bolas.
And I think the reason that he has a Searing Spear here is because he has Tribute to Hunger in his hand, so he needs to set it up, basically.
Yep. You see a Blood Crypt come to play untapped. You're going to see the Experiment 1 come across. Is it time to cash in that Azorius Charm?
I can't imagine holding it here.
Well, it does have Think Twice in his hand. All right, you're going to see.
Oh, sure.
You're going to see Thought Scour reveal another Thought Scour to Steam Vents. Going to draw Brian a fresh card, which is a Pillar of Flame.
All right, now if his hand is Pillar, then he can take this hit and then think twice.
He's going to opt to Azorius Charm it.
Maybe he feels he just has to Pillar the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Bigger problem down the road. Experiment 1 gets moved up to the top of the deck. And Tyler is going to pass back. Probably has to die in this deck just to make sure that he does activate the Deathrite Shaman. Doesn't want to forget. Pillar of Flame looks like it's going to be cast here. Take out the Deathrite Shaman.
Probably going to eat the Azorius Charm.
Yeah, I think that's the one you got to hit there. Make sure Snapcaster Mage doesn't get out of control. And now you're going to see a Think Twice in the main phase for Brian.
Looking for a land drop.
Doesn't have it.
Doesn't have it. His hand is loaded, though.
Now this is one of the scary things, and this is what you brought up about having 2 basic lands in the deck. You see the Forest, you see the Mountain, but you also see Experiment 1 and Strangleroot Geist in Tyler's hand.
Yeah.
And you see a Blood Crypt as well. So one of the issues with this deck, it is very color-centric, is the mana, but you're going to see a Gore Clan Rampager.
Boom.
4 mana, 4/4. Does
Good
have
against
trample.
Restoration Angel, man.
Yeah.
Still gets it done.
Good against an opponent that doesn't have lands either.
Yeah, sure. Like many threats.
Yeah.
It is not unique in this respect.
Woodland Cemetery. That'll help alleviate some things here.
Yep.
And it looks like we're going to start this one off with Strangleroot Geist.
And now you're
maybe?
seeing some of the awkwardness of Evolve, where Tyler wants to play his best threat first, but eventually it doesn't also want to get stranded with Experiment 1 as his last threat card.
Yeah.
like Strangleroot, guys, is super attractive to play here. Your opponent, you know, stuck on lands. You don't have to worry about Restoration Angel. Even if you play Supreme Verdict, that's fine because your guy comes back as a 3/2.
Yep.
But that Experiment one is also looming as, well, it's not getting better. It's only getting worse. I think that he has to play it like this, but you know, it's not ideal.
Yeah, I think he just has to be aggressive as he possibly can because it's pretty clear that Brian needs to flashback this Think Twice to hit a land drop.
Yeah.
And so Brian's going to take the damage, flashback the Think Twice, draw a card. Drew looks like Sulfur Falls for his turn, so he did find a 4th land. And you see Supreme Verdict being pushed to the front, of Brian's hand, considering casting it. But again, Strangleroot Guy's going to come back for more.
Yeah, I would rather just pillar the Strangleroot Guys in Azorius Charm and give yourself a little bit of breathing room. Because you don't really know for sure in the entirety of Tyler's deck here. You don't want to, that Supreme Verdict is your one catch-all against something random you're not expecting. So,
I mean, the other thing here too is that part of Brian's plan this turn could be, all right, I will Restoration Angel, get in front of the Geist, take care of the front half of it, take 4, go to 7, and then Supreme Verdict and clear everything up. But again, we know that Tyler has Tribute to Hunger in his hand. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can fire off the Supreme Verdict right here. I think you have to,
You can see he's really going through the motions here. Not quite sure what he wants to do.
But I would rather, like when your opponent's running low on threats and you're a little jammed up on mana, I would, if I was in Brian's position, I would rather just pillar Azorius Charm. Then, if things go bad, you have Supreme Verdict, and if things don't go bad, next turn you have Snapcaster Azorius Charm, and then you're giving yourself a little bit of momentum and more breathing space.
Now Tyler has to be careful here because he's looking at Tribute to Hunger, and he needs to be aware that Tribute to Hunger can only target himself. Or excuse me, only target the opponent.
Yeah.
So he was thinking about maybe I tribute myself, make me sacrifice my own Strangleroot Geist, but you can't do that. And drawing another Strangleroot Geist here is actually quite good.
Yeah.
And so now you are going to see Tribute to Hunger take care of the Snapcaster Mage, and now Tyler's going to come across for 6 and going to put Brian down to 5.
And this is why I probably would have pursued Pillar plus Azorius Charm, is this kind of setup, because the Supreme Verdict is now pretty inefficient and you don't have enough mana to handle. I guess you can still pillar this turn now that he's drawn a land and Snapcaster Azorius Charm.
Well, the problem is he doesn't have a pillar in his hand.
I thought he flashed it back last turn with the... Oh, he didn't have one left over. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he had a pillar in his hand.
Sure.
Okay. And did we just draw...
Draw Experiment 1, and now
and
we
the
draw
Hell
Hell
Rider.
Rider. Trigger that.
I don't know if Brian has quite enough mana to fight over all this stuff.
Yeah, Counterflux is a thing, but I mean he can do Counterflux on the Hell Rider, Azorius Charm on something, maybe the Gore Clan Rampager. But by putting Gore Clan Rampager on top of your opponent's deck, all right, now I have to play around the +4/+4 part of this card.
Well, I think Tyler is empty-handed, so you could then just try to deal with it on a one-on-one basis, like just to Azorius Charm or even Supreme Verdict,
Sure.
as needed.
So here come, and we'll see if he may not have remembered the counter on Experiment 1, because you don't see a die on there right now. So maybe he got a little ahead of himself. Played the cards in the right order, may not have triggered the Evolve. Brian considering what to Azorius Charm here. Oh, yeah, my fault. That's why there's no Evolve, because it got countered. It didn't come into play. So smart. Glad you're in the booth with me.
No worries, man. So yeah, this is some pretty tough sequencing here because, you know, Brian basically is almost certainly compelled to fire off his Supreme Verdict next turn, almost no matter what.
Yeah.
So then what you Azorius Charm is very significant because it's going to be your opponent's draw step next turn. So like, what are you most equipped to handle?
So you can Azorius Charm the Gore Clan Rampager. He's going to take 2. He's going to go down to 3. Now, obviously, the issue here is the Supreme Verdicts.
Yeah, it certainly can't be Supreme Verdict now.
You know, the Strangleroot Geist comes back to play, and then there's the Gore Clan on top of the deck.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the sequencing. It seems safer to just Azorius Charm the Stingrover guys, untap Supreme Verdict, fall to 3, and now your whole hand is ready to go to handle just a lone Strangleroot Geist.
Snapcaster Mage.
Targets Azorius Charm.
Yep.
So we're going to see so yeah, we're definitely sort of, well, at this point we're blocking Strangleroot Geist, I would assume, and again,
Yeah, you block the Strangleroot Geist here and let the Experiment one through, because if he doesn't flinch, then you actually get the Verdict final.
yeah. I mean, if he Snapcaster Azorius Charm, you just have to pass.
Yeah. And Brian passes. Tyler passes.
So Brian is going to fall to 2. Combo.
Yep. So now you probably cast the Rampager, right?
Because you have regeneration.
Yeah. So if you cast the Rampager, it becomes, Experiment 1 becomes a 3/3. Yep.
Yep.
And so he's going to cast it. He's going to trigger that. He has regeneration, so now Verdict is still bad.
Right.
Azorius Charm, cycle. Draws a Steam Vents.
That little synergy between Strangleroot Geist and Experiment 1 super important here.
Draws a Hollow Fountain.
And those are now Coastal Tower for the rest of the game.
Supreme Verdict. He's going to regenerate.
Regenerate.
So now Experiment 1 is just a 1/1, and so any creature is going to get it done. For the most part, doesn't draw 1.
Oh wow. Do we?
Whew, Brian
Now
just faded big time.
There's not a lot of cards in Tyler's deck that don't kill him there.
Glacial Fortress comes into play untapped. We know that Brian has a Sphinx's Revelation in his hand.
Restoration Angel plus plus 2 Revelations are his defensive tools in hand. So this is again challenging. Is it safer to Revelate for 3 or to play Restoration Angel? You die to different things depending on which path you take.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well just say go right now, because you're going to find out in the draw step if there's anything going on, but
I think Brian has done a nice job of navigating this game, getting to where he wants to go. And I don't really think that Tyler's decision process has been poor. I agree with most of his plays.
I think Brian was not as efficient in setting up that Supreme Verdict as he needed to be. I think if he had if he used Azorius Charm on Strangleroot Geist, then Supreme Verdict the following turn, now everything's super clean, because you're just playing against a Strangleroot Geist with your hand of Azorius Charm, Restoration Angel, and Sphinx's Revelation. It's not too hard to stabilize from there. But I think some of the pathing here has led to this, where now the game's super tight.
See Experiment 1 come across, you're going to see Sphinx's Revelation. He's got to do it for the full amount, and Tyler has drawn Forest Stomping Grounds for his 2 draws over this turn. Brian's going to go up to 5, then down to 4.
And we may have lost our window here if we're Tyler. And that's a Pillar of Flame. I think that's going to wrap her up.
That's got to go. And now you're going to see the blue-white-red deck start to take over.
Yeah.
As you see Steam Vents come into play. Tyler's going to draw a card.
Another land.
Draws an Overgrown Tomb, another land. Restoration Angel going to just come in as a 3/4. Start the clock. Another Restoration Angel drawn here for Brian to go along with that Azorius Charm. You see Sulfur Falls come into play.
Is that Strangleroot Geist?
Strangleroot Geist is going to come in. Brian's okay with it. And he can either Restoration Angel this or just Azorius Charm it back to the top. However he wants to take care of it. You see Restoration Angel come in here. He's going to block, gets the token. Put it up.
Yep. Happy. He's quite happy if that's Tyler's draw step next turn.
Absolutely. Draws another Restoration Angel here. To go along with the Supreme Verdict and a Sphinx's Revelation. Attacks here for 3. I'm surprised he's not attacking with the other one. Just because he can't Revelate for so much here.
Yeah.
Just playing a little bit safe. Maybe he's a little bit worried about what that last card in Tyler's hand could be.
Probably not anything good, or he would have cast it.
Yeah. Now he's just going to play the Forest. Brian has all the information now. And now he's got all the life and all the cards, too. He's going to go up to 11 here. He's going to draw 7 fresh ones.
Tyler's so close.
Yeah. It's tough when you get an opponent to 1, Patrick. I know this happens to me a lot, especially because you and I both play aggressive decks a lot. When it's 1 and not none, you're thinking, all right, what did I miss with point of damage?
Yeah.
What did I do wrong? Because I can't get my opponent to not 0 based off of what I've drawn. I have to have done something incorrect here. As you see, Snapcaster Mage plus Searing Spear going to take care of those last 5 points of damage, and we're going to go to a game 3 here between Tyler Lindsey and Brian Eason.
Yeah, there's so many draws that Brian had to fade on that last turn. I mean, any creature or basically any spell.
Yeah, just about any guy gets it done. The only one that doesn't get it done is one of his other experiment 1s. Every other creature in Tyler's deck gets the job done, including Deathrite Shaman, because it's a 1/2 and not a 1/1. But at the end of the day, Brian was able to fade that 1 turn and win. That's what you have to calculate your outs, right? You have to.
Right.
Sometimes you do have to get a little lucky.
Yeah, and I don't want to be super critical of Brian's play, because that was a tough game to play.
Yeah.
But I think there were some inconsistencies on how he tried to path. Like, at what point do you pull the trigger on Supreme Verdict, and then how do you play the turn or 2 preceding that to maximize its efficiency? So
that's the tough part.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's certainly not easy.
But he was able to get through it, and that's why we're going to be moving on to a 3rd game here. Both players re-looking at the sideboards here very quickly. I don't think a ton changes. You know, Tribute to Hunger is a card that Brian does know about from Tyler's deck now, but again, I still think it has its value.
Yeah.
You know, if anything, he might overthink about it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Yeah, I don't think that anything really changes on Brian's side. He still has his four best cards in his sideboard, which are Detention Sphere and Supreme Verdict. Really not sure what shaving he really wants to do here. I mean, I think Is It Charm's probably not great here, but the rest of his deck seems pretty good, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just did some sort of general shaving.
Yeah. You know, I expect to see the Skull Cracks be in here for Tyler. Obviously would have been huge that game. They would have been game winning, that much is obvious. But I think you're going to see those come in here. Again, those Tribute to Hungers, which we've already seen. Maybe you'll see that 4th Deathrite Shaman. Maybe you'll see 1 or 2 of those 2 Golgari Charms he has. So pretty straightforward stuff here. Interesting matchup. You know, a deck that we're very used to in Blue White Red Flash versus the new kid on the block in Experiment Jund, a deck that looks pretty good thus far.
No, it's been impressive, and we were a hair's breadth away from that being a quick 2-0.
Yeah.
So, you know, certainly I'm not sure if the mana base is constructed as efficiently as it should be. Like I said, the one basic mountain when you have Strangled Root Geist in your deck and you're just pinned on green mana all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a little suspicious of, but that's a pretty small critique in the scheme of things. Yeah. I think there's a lot of awesome stuff going on.
Both players are shuffling up for a final game 3 here. If you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, SCG Open Series in Atlanta. You guys can join the conversation with us on Twitter, much like Billy Moreno has earlier, talking about how great the Waffle House is.
It is delicious.
If you do share a similar opinion to Billy, you can tweet at us at SCG Live or hashtag SCGATL. We're checking Twitter all day, of course, interact with you guys at home.
You are checking Twitter all day long, and you are interacting with everyone all day long.
That's
I'm just
true.
here in my silo.
That's true, because Patrick doesn't realize that it's 2013. Doesn't believe in Twitter. Don't even know how he has a Facebook account.
Yeah.
But I will be checking Twitter, I guess. I'll take the full burden of responsibility on that in between rounds to interact with you guys.
Don't act like it's a burden.
Yeah, it's really...
Please, Cedric.
It's very difficult to do, but...
Can we please just be honest with one another?
I do the hard work here in the booth. That's why they have me so much.
Tyler keeping, Brian keeping.
Stomping Ground, Experiment numero uno? I don't know, just Deathrite Shaman. Just the best card in Modern. That's
Yeah.
all. And just a Hollow Fountain and pass the turn back. We have
Rootbound
Rootbound Crag, and we've got a Strangler Geist. The beatdowns are upon us.
Yep.
Brian going to move down to 17. It would be pretty good for him right now if he had an Augur of Bolas.
It's insane when you watch these games of Standard where you're used to, you're used to playing Legacy and Modern, where Deathrite Shaman is out of control.
Yeah.
And then you see in Standard, you're like, this thing's pretty anemic. And then it's like, no, actually, it's still very good. It's just not, completely outrageous
Yeah,
like
it's
it
just
is.
not as good.
Yeah.
So you do see a Searing Spear in Tyler's hand. He can clear the way, get that Augur of Bolas out of the way. You also do see a Dreg Mangler here, wondering if he has the black mana. Does not look like he does. See Rootbound Crag and a Mountain. Yep, no black. Now this is a deck that doesn't have a ton of black cards in it. You find Dreg Mangler, you find Deathrite Shaman and Abrupt Decay, so it doesn't need a lot of black mana. Would be nice to have right now, but Searing Spear is just going to clear that Augur of Bolas out of the way. Pressure's still on, but Brian draws another one.
Yeah, the lack of black mana, the basic mountain, all this stuff is adding up to percentage points against Tyler here as this game proceeds.
Now you're going to see another Augur of Bolas here. And that's an Aurelius Fury.
It's big and splashy, and it's going to be, I have a feeling it's going to be very good in this game, assuming Brian finds red mana.
Let's take a draw step here for Tyler.
It's a Hell Rider.
It's a Hell Rider.
The problem is that he knows it's Supreme Verdict from the first Augur, so.
That is the problem.
Do you just go for it? He says no.
How about a Gore-Clan Rampager? This card is good.
Yes, this card's real good.
I mean, Aurelius Fury on the screen is good. But you see just how good Gore-Clan Rampager is, because again, Patrick, so many decks have trouble getting through the 1/3 that Augur of Bolas is. And so many decks have trouble getting through Restoration Angel, and this card takes care of both. As you just see, it just get through a ton of damage there, and now Supreme Verdict, nowhere near as desirable now.
Yeah, not nearly as good.
As you guys do see Gore-Clan Rampager on the screen. Wondering if Blood Rush, is a good mechanic. This is the best Blood Rush card that is probably constructed playable, and you see over the course of the day just how good it's been.
Yeah, this card strikes me as, like, by no small margin the best Blood Rush card. I can actually see decks where the double striker might be better.
Sure.
But that's a different thing. Just for a straight beatdown deck, this is the best one.
Yeah. So now you see Brian, he was planning on casting Supreme Verdict, and he's still going to cast it. Strangler Geist is going to come back as a 3/2, and now the door is wide open for Hell Rider.
Yep.
It's never been more open. Still looking for that black mana, hasn't found it yet. Not quite sure what that draw was a Skullcrack. So now we're going to have Hell Rider, 2 triggers. Going to put Brian down to 2. And we saw that his draw for the turn was a Skullcrack, was Tyler Lindsey's. So Brian did a nice job of navigating himself out of game 2.
Yeah.
Woo, he's going to have to do a nice job to do it this time. And he does have a Supreme Verdict in his hand, but we know that that's not going to get it done.
It's not enough.
There's your Supreme
He has
Verdicts.
nothing better to cast.
And Tyler goes, yeah, those are definitely dead.
Can't untap fast enough.
Bang, Skullcrack, that's it. Tyler Lindsey, Experiment Jun, moves on to 6-1, defeating Brian Eason in his blue at red flash deck.
This is the first thing that I would really describe as a, with the exception of Brad Nelson's opponent in round 1, this is the first thing that we've seen that's, I would define as a new deck.
Yes.
This is a